A new civil lawsuit filed in 3rd District Court names BYU quarterback Jake Retzlaff and accuses him of sexual assault. All of the details tonight.
It's devastating to see one of my favorite buildings in Salt Lake be torn down.
Another landmark in Salt Lake City's Granary District is no more. How more than 130 years of history at the Utah Pickle Company building came crumbling down.
I would just like to see this lake return to its former glory of what it was.
Voters at Lake Powell say the services here have declined. We'll tell you what the National Park Service says.
Heading into tomorrow, we're definitely feeling the heat, but do we get some relief with some rain for the holiday weekend? We'll check on that in your forecast.
One elementary school teacher here in West Haven is using her social media and dance moves to try to reduce a burden on Utah kids and families.
Live from Utah's news leader, Fox 13 News at 9 starts right now.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Evans. BYU star quarterback Jake Retzlaff is accused of sexual assault in a new civil lawsuit. It claims he raped a Salt Lake County woman back in November of 2023. Fox 13 News reporter Jeremy Toms went to Provo today looking for answers.
A Salt Lake County woman identified as Jane Doe in a newly filed lawsuit says she first started talking with BYU quarterback Jake Retzlaff in the fall of 2023. She and a friend went to his apartment that November to hang out, and when her friend left, the lawsuit claims Retzlaff forced her into performing sexual acts against her will. The allegations of rape, strangulation, and more stunned those students we talked with on campus.
He seems like a really awesome guy, and I don't know, I was kind of shocked when I heard about that.
The school have norms and it has the honor code, and you agree on that when you sign for or you apply to BYU. It makes this university look awful, and it's just terrible. It's really surprising.
In a statement, the university tells us they take any allegation very seriously, following all processes and guidelines mandated by Title IX. The lawsuit also goes on to say that when Jane Doe reported what happened to Provo police, an officer encouraged her not to do anything because, quote, sexual assault victims never get justice. Well, Provo police say from everything they've reviewed, that allegation isn't true. They say the lawsuit provided enough detail to identify a possible correlating case report, and the woman in that instance was treated with courtesy and care. She declined to identify her abuser, so the case was closed. Students are left hoping the accusations within the lawsuit aren't true, saying if they are, there should be consequences.
I think it should be looked into, but hopefully it doesn't reflect on BYU as a whole. I don't think the decisions of one person should reflect on a whole university.
In Provo, Jeremy Toms, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Our content partners at the Salt Lake Tribune connected with Retzlaff's attorney, Mark Bowdy. He says his client is a, quote, nice young man who is factually innocent. The lawsuit is civil, and Retzlaff has not been criminally charged.
These are the types of cases where nobody really knows what happened. If there is not an objective third-party witness or some type of objective piece of evidence, you're relying solely upon what one person says versus the other.
This evening, I spoke with criminal defense attorney Rob Jones about why this was filed as a civil case and not a criminal case. He says because this is basically she said, he said, a civil case is easier to win because it only requires a preponderance of evidence rather than evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, as in a criminal trial.
So there may be a chance that because of that, the evidence, although not overwhelming, if it at least indicates to a civil jury or a judge that it may have been more likely that this happened than not, she may be able to succeed, and then at least could be awarded damages.
Jones points out that even if Retzlaff is found innocent of the civil charges, he may still have to deal with the Honor Code Office. He says the case is going to take some time. We have breaking news into the Fox 13 newsroom. A proposal by Utah Congresswoman Celeste Malloy to sell thousands of acres of public lands has apparently been yanked from President Trump's big, beautiful bill. Environmental groups tell Fox 13 News it was stripped during budget reconciliation. The amendment would have sold 11,000 acres of BLM land in Utah and 500,000 acres of land in Nevada. So far, no comment from Congresswoman Malloy's office. There was brewing opposition to her idea from environmental groups and even some fellow Republicans. Former Trump Interior Secretary and Montana Congressman Ryan Zinke was among those who joined a bipartisan caucus supporting public lands and spoke against the idea. The Great Basin Water Network praised Zinke's stance, saying they hope it, quote, sends a strong message not to break public trust and the Colorado River for billionaire tax breaks. Right now, UTA is reporting major delays on Front Runner and tracks up and down the Wasatch Front. They say crews will work overnight to resolve the mechanical issues that started this. The delays run both north to Ogden and south to Provo. There are bus bridges in place. Tonight, a fire has forced a family from their home in Kaysville. Crews were called out for a car fire and say it spread to the home's attic before they even left the station. But once there, they had it out in 15 minutes. No one was hurt and everybody got out safely. We spoke with a neighbor who says she checked on the family.
Somewhat in shock. I mean, they're pretty shaky, but they seem to be handling it okay. They have a lot of support, and so I think they're going to be okay.
Investigators are looking into what caused this fire. Salt Lake City is looking into the division between its east and west sides. Transportation planners say people consistently complain about the train tracks and freeway, making it hard to get from one side to the other, which disproportionately impacts people on the west side, where there are fewer amenities.
We have heard over and over again that the biggest transportation problem we have is the divide between the east and west halves of the city.
The city held an open house tonight to kick off a 2-year study into the issue. They hope to learn more about the problem and find a way to fix it. You can weigh in online. Helping erase student lunch debt in Utah is a big priority for us here at Fox 13 News. We've been raising money all month to help reduce this burden on Utah families who have more than $3.6 million in lunch debt just this school year. Now, someone else in our community also saw this problem, and they're trying to make a difference too. Fox 13 News reporter Maithili Gubi has that story from West Haven.
That's why I love these little fidgety toys, because they just give them the opportunity to take a moment for themselves.
Katie Christensen is a special education teacher at West Haven Elementary School.
I call myself the bonus teacher.
It's a job that she's had at different schools for 7 years and cares deeply about.
Especially when they've struggled or they're trying to master a concept and then they finally get it. You're like, this is the coolest feeling in the world.
And now she's doing something to help many more students and families.
I really thought we would maybe get $100, $200 every once in a while, and then that would be it. But $20,000 and it's not over yet.
Trying to help pay off school lunch debt.
I think a lot about my students. Sorry, it's kind of emotional. I love my kids. You know, watching kids come to school and maybe they're hungry or they're distracted by their hunger, it's a lot. They can't focus on anything else. And so, like, if their hunger isn't met or their basic needs aren't met, school doesn't have a chance. This is when we paid off school number 5.
Raising thousands of dollars with the help of some dance moves and TikTok.
I want them to have fun with me and I want them to dance with me, so.
Katie started this in January and has raised enough money through monetizing her TikTok account and collecting donations online to pay off lunch debt at 6 schools, and she's still going.
Because it is a problem, and I feel like if we can help each other, then maybe we can get through this hard time together.
Wow, it's really fun.
To highlight the work that Katie is doing.
And thank you. This is something we really appreciate, and again, you're a great example within the city. We don't see all the good that happens in the communities, and when you see something like this come up, especially when it involves children in any way in helping families. It's just it's a wonderful thing.
Hoping more people can understand lunch debt and can help.
Doing this for our community and our kids, but it's nice to at least put a light on it and be like, hey, this is a problem in our area.
In West Haven, I am Maitri Gobi, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Fox 13 has raised nearly $33,000 to erase school lunch debt. We continue to raise money through the end of the month. You can donate right now at fox13now.com/lunchdebt or scan the QR code on your screen. You can also text lunch debt, all one word, to 50155. I'll tell you what a gorgeous night out there tonight. We've really had a great day weather-wise.
Well, yeah, throughout the week, it's just been a nice string of great weather. And we top it off here as we give you a view outside of you from our Oquirrh Mountain camera looking west across the Tooele Valley, I-80, Great Salt Lake. We're seeing a beautiful sunset once again. We're going to keep conditions mainly clear as we go in the overnight and heading into tomorrow. Today's temperatures a little bit cooler here across northern Utah. Highs getting up into the 60s and low 70s, where on average we should be in the mid 70s. We were in the mid 70s through central Utah and even 90s in St. George. Currently we're in the low 60s here along the Wasatch Front. We look at the temperature change over the past 24 hours. A cool front moving in, dropping temperatures slightly, but ahead of the front we're still looking at temperatures warmer than yesterday. There's the position of the front. It was a dry, cool front. We're seeing a few high clouds making their move here across northern Utah. No big issues here, as we'll be looking at mostly clear conditions with overnight lows getting down into the low 50s. So not quite as cold as we've been experiencing over the past couple of mornings, but we're on the rise with the thermometer. The warm before our next storm. How will that impact your weekend? We'll answer that coming up in just a bit.
All right, thank you, Brett. Coming up, a Fox 13 News investigation into certain parts of food stamps being hacked, what we've learned and what's being done about it. Plus, what we're learning about recent threats made against the mayor of Salt Lake City. And caught on camera, a Utah group posts video of themselves climbing the massive claw outside the Loveland Living Planet Aquarium in Draper. What they had to say to Fox 13 News.
You're watching Fox 13 News, part of the Scripps News Group.
It's a story Fox 13 News has been following. Stolen SNAP benefits, leaving some Utahns without a way to pay for groceries. What you're about to see and hear isn't just your garden variety fraudulent food stamp activity story. As Fox 13 News anchor and consumer investigative reporter Robin Oginye explains, this case is different.
Jerome Perez is experiencing a bit of deja vu.
We're struggling with being homeless for a long time. Actually, we were actually dealing with it probably for about 5 years, and we've been off the street for about 4 years now. So it's starting to, now we're starting to get panicky, like, uh-oh, are we going to be in the same situation?
Why the panic? The money that would help him pay for housing, gone. Jerome had been working up until recently. Current issues with his heart and back have left him temporarily unable to work. His wife, Anita, is also disabled. The couple began receiving financial assistance a few months ago, in addition to the SNAP benefits they use to feed their 2 children. Those benefits are placed on the same card. An unexpected surprise awaited him when he attempted to pay this month's rent with his EBT card in tow.
I just went to the 7-Eleven to try to withdraw the funds for the rent because we had texted the landlord to come and get it. And when I went there, it said insufficient funds. I was like, nah, there's no way. The money's on there, $770. And I was like, I just checked last night. He goes, I'm telling you, it's saying insufficient funds. I did my own due diligence and tried to track down where the transaction was done at. And I pulled up a ATM location in San Jose. It's like a little shopping mall.
Left high and dry and only $18 left on the card, Jerome reached out to several organizations to find help. Fortunately, the family of 4 received assistance from a nonprofit for this month's rent, but the situation still left them scratching their heads. Jerome says his card was locked, which would protect your benefits from fraudulent activity.
They just admitted to us that, yes, the financial was able to be taken off even if the card's locked.
Becky Wickstrom with Workforce Services says while 85,000 people across Utah utilize SNAP, 3,000 of them also receive additional benefits, much like Jerome. Workforce Services created the locking system as a security mechanism, but again, it only protects the SNAP benefits. Has there been discussion of a remedy for that?
Yeah, I mean, this is something we continue to work with our federal partners, our card vendor on.
Fox 13 has reported on Utahns having this very issue before, once in August last year and again in January.
It does seem a little strange that it keeps happening, even though we do have these protocols and procedures in place where we're saying, hey, lock your card, but this is still continuing to happen. What answers do you have for the people who are experiencing this?
Yeah, I mean, we know that this is devastating if it happens to you, if your account is drained and it's not your fault. This is happening on a big scale. And like I said, these schemes are becoming more sophisticated, more advanced. And that's why we're trying to do things now to increase security.
Jerome wants that security to be even more secure for his family and for everyone trying to make ends meet.
It's kind of like playing Russian roulette with your family. They ought to be hunted down, you know, whoever the criminal organization is, hunted down and brought to justice. I mean, it's taking advantage of the weakest of the weak of our society, our communities.
Workforce Services tells me the best defense mechanism is still to lock your card and frequently change your PIN. They say the card lock is a stopgap solution, something they could implement immediately instead of waiting for additional protections to come down the line. Robin O'Guinier, Fox 13 News, Utah.
All right, moving to your weather, getting you ready. Again, viewing the weekend, making those preparations. We have a little bit of an update there on the weather forecast, but today, gorgeous across the state. Highlighting some of the beautiful weather we've been receiving here in Heber Valley. Brent taking this photo, putting up on our Facebook page, Utah's Weather Authority. He always makes a huge contribution, especially as we look in both Wasatch and Summit counties. Now, looking at the high today in Salt Lake City, big bump up in temperatures, still below average. We only got to 69 degrees where we should be, and typically in the mid 70s. Record for today set at 94 degrees as we stand right now in Salt Lake City. Low 60s as well as in Logan. Currently 63 degrees in Price. St. George, right now you're at 87 degrees. You got up into the low 90s today, and we're looking for upper 90s come tomorrow. Now, expected high, a big jump up again where we get up to 85 degrees. Again, on average, we should be in the mid 70s. We're going to be on a little bit of a warming trend and then going back down with a cool front that's going to be moving through just in time for the weekend. What is up in addition is the pollen count. As we started off Monday with that rain, we were in the yellow throughout most of the state. That's flipped over into the orange between medium and high, northern, central, southwestern Utah, just one little area of the state still in that medium. But this is going to be a concern as we'll be dry and warming things up moving through the rest of the week. So as you're having to do some yard work or wanted to do some yard work here for the holiday weekend, yeah, can you mow your lawn? Yeah, no issues come tomorrow through Friday. Saturday, though, at least for northern Utah, there's a bit of a question mark as we do have a storm system as we see a chance of a few isolated areas getting some rain showers. Right now, we're not seeing any rain. High pressure in place. We look upstream. We have a couple little disturbances that need to roll through, which will be clipping portions of northern Utah. As it moves in, it's only going to have an impact across the north. We'll see some cooler temperatures for southern Utah. Ahead of that, though, we'll be kicking up the winds as we go from Thursday into Friday. But high pressure in place tomorrow. One little system brushing by that'll drop temperatures a little bit on Friday, and then a bigger temperature drop as we head into Saturday with that second wave. That's the one that could produce a few isolated showers here across northern Utah. Still, as it stands, we don't need to make any changes for your weekend plans. Again, the rain as it comes across northern Utah should be brief and quickly move on. Highs tomorrow under that southwest flow. Many spots getting up into the 80s, even 90s in St. George. For Memorial Day, still looking good. Sunny, very warm here across northern Utah. We're expecting mid 80s. Mid 90s, though, in St. George. You got the sunshine staying dry. We'll have some winds on Saturday, a little drop in temperatures, but again, rain-free here for the next several days. Northern Utah, the only thing we're seeing is Saturday afternoon through early evening. Could see some isolated showers, mainly over the mountains. That'll cool off temperatures. But again, that rebound Sunday through Monday back into the 80s. So that little bump in the road. But again, as I said, do not change any plans. Just some brief showers will be in place and we're good to go for the weekend. We're back after the break.
We're continuing to follow the disappearance of 15-year-old Elisa Petrov from South Jordan. It's been 1 month since anyone has seen her. Police say she could be trying to meet up with people she found using multiple social media apps and platforms. Today, we spoke with the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. They told us 1 in 5 children are sexually solicited. They urge parents to educate themselves with technology and popular social media apps.
Their kids can hide, conversations or pictures in other apps. App hiding apps, there's so much out there. So I always express to parents that they need to really educate themselves. Have open, honest lines of communication with your kids is the most important thing, because kids are walking out the door with these powerful computers and they're able to talk to anyone in the world.
We also spoke with the Light the Way Missing Persons Advocacy Project. They want all of us to keep sharing Elisa's photos, flyers, and spreading the word that everyone is looking for her. Light the Way also says the best way to bring her home is to not let her story be forgotten. A Farmington man has been arrested for allegedly threatening and stalking Salt Lake City Mayor Erin Mendenhall. Investigators say 45-year-old Jason Guy Rogers began making threatening social media posts directed at the mayor after she led the charge to circumvent a state law banning non-sanctioned flags with a series of LGBTQ-themed city flags. He was spotted trying to enter the Salt Lake City County building where the mayor's office is. The mayor's office says they are monitoring the situation and are appreciative of the quick actions by police. Rogers is behind bars tonight in the Davis County Jail. Draper police are investigating after a group broke into the Loveland Living Planet Aquarium to climb on the massive claw structure by I-15 and post about it on social media. Urbex, Utah shared this video on Instagram yesterday. It's unclear when the video was shot. They tell Fox 13 News they are aware that what they did is illegal, but are willing to take that risk in the name of fun. Draper police hope the video doesn't inspire copycats and warn this behavior is dangerous. They want anyone who might have information about this incident to call them. Representatives from the aquarium did not want to comment for this story.
Broken docks, dirty restrooms, and rising fees.
I started noticing a decline in services.
With 4.7 million visitors, some say Lake Powell is not what it used to be.
Who's responsible here at Lake Powell? We went looking for answers.
The government contract that hasn't been up for bid in decades, and where your tax dollars are being spent.
I would just like to see this lake return to its former glory.
Coming up next.
Tonight we have developing news regarding Lake Powell. We've learned the superintendent at Glen Canyon National Recreation Area has announced she is leaving her post. Fox 13 News investigative reporter Nate Carlisle joins us live in studio tonight with what we know. Nate.
Bob, Michelle Kearns emailed her staff that next week will be her last day, and she says she's retiring for, quote, personal reasons. She echoed that while I briefly got her on the phone today. Coincidentally, the news comes as we continue to report on issues at the popular lake. We told you last night about how the National Park Service has not placed its biggest Lake Powell contracts out for bid in decades. Kearns does contend our reporting was not a factor in her decision to leave, but boaters have been concerned about how the Park Service itself is managing the lake. We went to Lake Powell to see things for ourselves. This is Lake Powell.
Where's the best place on Lake Powell?
On the Utah-Arizona line.
This midsection of the lake is my favorite part.
Families from all over the world come here to vacation.
It's been really kind of a treat to see the lake this way.
Play in the water.
And this is where we, pretty much play in this midsection of the lake.
Get a little R&R.
It doesn't take one of these boats to be able to enjoy the lake.
Zach Smoot runs Powell Heads on Instagram.
You can come here, you can kayak, you can rent boats.
Lake Powell is managed by the National Park Service, and we heard from a lot of people with concerns about that management.
And so it's just frustrating, I think, seeing our lake decline over the years.
Bob Reed operates Up Lake Adventures, a guided outfitter on Lake Powell.
from the buoys that are either not operational with the lights.
The buoy should keep you in the channel, safe from hitting bottom, but
this buoy has a light, but instead of being out in the channel, the buoy is actually in front of the shoreline. Any boat running past it could smack into that sandbar.
And even though we make mention to it, well, we'll pass that along, we'll let the other departments know, and nothing happens.
I feel like one of the very biggest problems we have is the absence of dangling rope marina, the mid-lake fuel.
This is where the dangling rope marina used to be, and it's all yanked out and it's gone now, so there's no fuel.
Dangling Rope Marina sat near the center of Lake Powell.
There's no services in between, here to here.
The Park Service closed Dangling Rope in 2022 with declining water levels.
Nobody wants to get hurt, but it happens.
Now it's 50 miles across the lake between stops for gas, food, and, most importantly, help.
EMS, the emergency medical people, to have them up there.
And this lake just continues to get more and more popular every year, and it really congests this end of the lake because people can't continue to go up.
The topic we heard most about on our visit to Lake Powell? Restrooms. No new toilets have been added in years, even though tourism keeps climbing.
You're bringing 200 to 300 people sometimes a day up into Antelope Canyon on kayaks, and there's no restroom facilities. We have found many times, floating poop in the water.
Lake Powell sits in Glen Canyon National Recreation Area. Total visits across Glen Canyon doubled in a decade to 4.7 million people in 2024.
Where we have visitor comment cards, and I have several of them on my desk right now.
Michelle Kearns is the superintendent at Glen Canyon.
We overwhelmingly get very positive input on the services, the experience that they had.
Kearns says there's a crew that maintains the buoys. She encouraged anyone seeing a broken or out-of-place buoy to report it. As for a mid-lake fueling station, somewhere with enough water, Kearns says the Park Service is looking for a spot, but there's no time frame. And there's no plans to add restrooms for kayakers in Antelope Canyon.
Getting infrastructure back there is pretty problematic. We do require that our kayak delivery services provide that human waste bag. Restrooms and human waste management is a real challenge.
Kearns says the jump in visitation is driving a perception of fewer services.
We are not the same experience for many of our longtime visitors that they experienced in their childhood 25 years ago. It's not the same lake.
Fees aren't the same either. Annual boating passes on Lake Powell jumped from $50 for all boats in 2023 to as much as $1,600 for the longest houseboats this year.
There's many of us that think the Park Service has outlived its usefulness at Glen Canyon. They need to go away, and it needs to be turned back to the state of Utah and Arizona to manage it.
I just want to see things get fixed. That's the thing, whether that be through the states, whether that be through the Park Service.
In 2023, the Park Service budgeted for 130 full-time employees at Glen Canyon. But that number will decline when federal workers across the country submit their voluntary resignations at the end of May. What would you say to folks who say that the Park Service just is not accountable at Glen Canyon National Recreation Area?
Well, Nate, I take that rather personally because I believe that we hold a high standard for the management of the resources that we've been entrusted to.
Lake Powell is an amazing place. It's really, I think, the jewel of America.
At Lake Powell, Nate Carlisle, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Tell us about your experiences at Lake Powell, whether you're a boater, an angler, or a camper. Email iteam@fox13now.com. Coming up, Fox 13 News spoke with officers in Salt Lake City's gang unit about a recent uptick in crime they've seen lately and what they're doing about it. And we'll meet a painter in St. George who's taking art to new heights. The Salt Lake City Police Gang Unit says gang members in Utah are being recruited at younger ages. It comes during an uptick of gang-related shootings in the state. Juan Naya joined a gang when he was just 13 years old. It was all he ever knew. Now he works with the organization Day One to help youth stay out of gangs and prison.
I had an older brother that,
said a better path, I probably would have took that path. You know, we didn't have that option growing up. It was either this way or that way.
Unfortunately, they target kids that come from less affluent families, you know, parents that are working multiple jobs to barely afford rent and groceries, things like that. So it's easy for the established gang members to go to the youth and say, hey, you know, if you can go sell this marijuana or these THC carts or cocaine or whatever it is and make tens of thousands of dollars, that's a very attractive thing. And once they get their hooks in them, then they start, you know, payment comes due.
The Utah Statewide Information and Analysis Center says in 2024, 35% of firearms cases in Salt Lake County were gang-related. In his first public comments since denying Rocky Mountain Power's rate hike, the head of Utah's Public Service Commission explained his decision. Rocky Mountain Power originally asked for a 30% rate increase to cover costs related to infrastructure and wildfire risk. They lowered it to 18%, but the Public Service Commission rejected that and gave Rocky Mountain Power 4.7% after hearing from Utahns.
We had thousands of comments from the public, and I read them, and we had 2 public hearings. And people were polite, but they were also very, very concerned. And what really I thought was that stood out was the number of folks who are on fixed income, maybe Social Security is their only source of income, who just were lamenting the fact that they couldn't afford 30% power increases.
Rocky Mountain Power so far has not returned our calls seeking comment. The utility has until the end of this week to appeal the decision by the Public Service Commission, and the PSC chair expects they will appeal. A mural getting attention in St. George is nearing completion. Artist Pepe Gaka, who is famous for painting the world's largest mural in Pakistan back in 2019, has been steadily working in downtown St. George on a mural 3 stories tall. It's being painted in between the Advenir Hotel and City View Apartments. It integrates images of musicians from the Southwest Symphony.
I thought it would be really nice for me to sort of celebrate them. And, you know, this is actually people living in St. George. So I love the idea that they come and they see, you know, the family, the son, the daughter, they say, look, this is me.
The Southwest Symphony will perform during a public unveiling of the mural in downtown St. George at 10 a.m. on Friday.
Well, as we go to break, let's share a photo coming up on our Facebook page. Lupin Fields, North Salt Lake on the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. You've got lots of outdoor activities for this weekend. We'll talk about the weather and what you can expect coming up.
And later in sports, BYU baseball scored one of the best victories in the history of the program on Wednesday, all as history was made recently on the high school scene. Meet Cy, Maple Mountain's big-time slugger. Back in a bit.
It has been a historic part of Salt Lake City's Granary District for many, many years, and that is why, even though it's been vacant for a long time, some people are upset the Utah Pickle Company building is becoming a debris pile. Fox 13 News digital reporter Shanti Lerner has that story.
Another historic building in Salt Lake City's Granary District is being demolished. It's known as the Utah Pickle Company building. Some residents I spoke to came here this morning concerned that another piece of their history is being forgotten and lost. And I also spoke to the developer who says they have the permits to demolish this building and they're going to reconstruct it.
So I ran over and interrupted the demolition, to which point they showed me their demolition permits that are okayed by the city. So I apologized and got out of their way.
This 2-acre area in the Granary District is being developed by BCG Holdings. The development will feature 140 housing units, space for retail and commercial use, pedestrian pathways, and a publicly accessible plaza. BCG has developed over 60 acres of property in the Granary District. The construction is happening on the site of the historic Pickle Building and Hydes Building. According to developers, the facade of the Bissinger & Company Hydes Building, built in 1919, was preserved. However, concerned residents like Franklin were shocked to find out that the Pickle Building, built in 1893, once home to the Utah Pickle Company, was being completely demolished, as you can see here on Wednesday.
It's devastating to see one of my favorite buildings in Salt Lake be torn down. These buildings, they tell the story of the city.
Alan Clemens, who's part of the BCG Holdings, says they followed all the right protocols with the city to demolish the Pickle Building and says it was ultimately the best option.
It didn't quite have the same robustness of the original foundation the Hyde Building did. The age of the building and the limits that it has structurally, we had to make the decision to do something other than restore it.
Clemens says they will recycle many of the materials and reconstruct the building to emulate its former glory. The city confirmed developers had the right permits and was aware that some demolition could take place as part of the project proposal. However, the city said in an email that all documents provided by the developer and considered by the Planning Commission demonstrated that the developer intended to reuse the building. Clemens says they expect the Pickle and Hyde project to be completed by the middle to the end of next year.
Another check on your forecast, getting you ready, of course, for the rest of the week, getting into the Memorial Day weekend. Outside, a beautiful evening, very mild, temperatures in the low 60s, winds light. The flow out of the north, we had a very weak cool front make its move through northern and central Utah. That allowed temperatures to be slightly cooler today, but actually warmer than what we found yesterday. Below average, that flow out of the north, no big issues with the winds here right now. That begins to change come tomorrow, as we're looking at winds picking up just a bit across southeastern Utah with red flag warnings in effect. When we have the combination of stronger winds and low humidity, we start looking at fire weather watches and red flag warnings as we go Thursday into Friday. Now we're going to see some breezy conditions across northern Utah. Another weak front tracks in across the north, but we don't have the humidity concerns here across northern Utah. But again, those wind gusts upwards of 35 miles per hour across southeastern Utah. The flow out of the southwest, winds a little bit stronger in preparation of a very weak front that will bring a chance of some rain showers as we head into Saturday. We're not even thinking about rain for the rest of the work week. We've got clear conditions and keeping it clear across the state with that high pressure that's been moving in. A couple of little systems lining up. One will be dry, dropping temperatures. The second one behind this one, though, will bring a chance of some rainfall. How much and where? Let's talk about it. As we go from Friday into Saturday, it's more as we go into the Saturday afternoon, into the Saturday evening hour time frame there. You can see mainly across the mountains there, western Uinta Mountains, as we turn through some of the southern end of the Wasatch Mountains through central Utah. Again, it's not widespread. It's very brief. You don't change any plans. You just be prepared for a little quick interruption to your holiday plans as we go into Saturday evening. Now for tomorrow, starting off clear, it will be a warmer start and definitely afternoon highs about 10 degrees warmer than what we found today as we return to the 80s for most of the state, even upper 80s across portions of central Utah, cracking into the 90s though of Moab and mid-90s in St. George. Again, Memorial Day weekend forecast for northern Utah. Warm, 85 degrees, clear, winds will be light. St. George, you've got 90s, sunshine, a little cooler Saturday and Sunday. All in all, once again staying dry over the next 7 days. Northern Utah, 80s and then 70s at least for a couple of days, and then back into the 80s, just that slight chance of an afternoon shower as we head into Saturday early evening. Then we're good to go.
Back in late April, BYU baseball was swept of a 3-game set at Arizona State. The Sun Devils earning the 5 seed at this week's Big 12 tournament, while the Cougars barely snuck in with the 12, the final team to make it in, which gave the Cougs one more shot at them, this time on a neutral site in Arlington, Texas. A Lone Peak kid with an RBI in the second, Crew McChesney, has the track in right center, scoring Keone Painter. Blew up an early run, make that 2, bases full in the 5th. Ball 4 means Bryker Herdsman can walk home. Meanwhile, BYU's pitching was dynamite, keeping ASU, an NCAA tournament bubble team, perhaps not anymore, to 6 hits, no runs. That's if short and left field don't collide. So the 12 seed with a massive upset moving on against the 4 Arizona tomorrow. UVU trying to sneak into baseball's version of the dance via the WAC tournament. Gave up 6 runs in the second to UT Arlington Tice Armstrong. Strong arms the ball ball out of the yard. But Utah Valley outscored the Mavericks 13-1 from there. Landon Fry, the Snow Canyon product, base hit scoring 2 for the lead back. Then Jaden Smith up the gut with the bases full, scoring 2 more. Give it to Green, 17-7 to draw Abilene Christian next. Stay with the whack from Mesa. 8th-seeded Utah Tech with an upset on Tuesday to advance against Grand Canyon. The Trailblazers with 4 unanswered to lift up 6-2 in the 8th, only to give up 5 in the bottom half of the 8th to fall 7-6 to the Lopes. As high school spring slate winds down here in Utah, a junior out of Maple Mountain continues to try and add to his already record-breaking campaign with the long ball. Cy Chrisman a week ago was tied for the single-season home run record, only to blast 2 in a playoff game against Skyline to own the record outright at 17, with that number even higher now.
Definitely doesn't get old. It's very exciting. It's kind of, everyone comes to the park to, hopefully see a long ball. I'll go to watch college baseball and major league games, and those are the balls that you want to see people hit. That what makes the game exciting. So you hitting the ball over the fence and then kind of looking up in the crowd and seeing everyone on their feet cheering for you. It's an exciting feeling.
After losing to rival Spanish Fork last night, Maple Mountain in a must-win game this afternoon against Viewmont, the defending 5A champs getting a grand slam from Chrisman to cap 10 Golden Eagle runs in the first. That's 19 home runs now on the season for the junior. This is the late game against Spanish Fork, a rematch. Spanish Fork was a 20 seed, and they came all the way back to beat Maple Mountain and force their way in to the 5A championship game over the weekend. Congratulations to them. All right. The Bees hosting Omaha this week, who won the International League title last year. J.D. Davis teeing off for Salt Lake in the 6th, his 4th of the season. Sebastian Rivero then singling in a run in the same frame as the Bees hold on at daybreak, 6-4. And Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals was an absolute classic. The Knicks firing up 14 with 4 minutes left after the Karl Anthony Towns board and putback, only to watch the Pacers rally to force overtime. Tyrese Halliburton thinks he gave Indiana the win after that high bounce and make, but they took another look at it, found his foot on the line. But in overtime, Halliburton finds a wide-open Andrew Nembhard, so last chance New York at Madison Square Garden. But Towns is going to be short here, so give it to the Pacers, 138-135. We'll be right back.
All right. Oh, he's like serious business.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, you know it's the end of the school year when the principal jumps in the dunk tank. This is Bonneville Elementary, and Julie Nielsen made good on her promise that if the students hit their attendance goals, she'd get in the dunk tank. And you can see the kids are loving it.
I do crazy stuff for kids because for me it's important to get kids excited about coming to school, and if getting dunked in freezing cold water is going to get one more kid to come to school, then it is worth it.
Lucky that today was so nice, huh?
Taking one for the team.
Taking one for the team.
Those kids can throw.
Yeah, they
impress future pitchers.
Well, and their motivation. They
Yes,
have
it
lots
is.
of motivation. Quick Cast is up next.